in for the special broadcast. What was feared has now happened. The worst case scenario that could have played out on tariffs and the tariff negotiations between India and the United States now is being seen. Very unceremoniously, the tariffs on India announced via Truth Social post by US President Donald Trump. Now that's the shocker. I'm just reading out the post before we move ahead, and of course we'll get expert views in on what it means. But Trump says, and I quote, "Remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good, exclamation point. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on the 1st of August. Thank you for your attention to this matter." MAGA. Exclamation mark. I mean, now why is this the worst case scenario? Of all the things that could happen, and Sanjana also joining me in this evening on the special broadcast, of all the situations that we could have hoped for while these painfully long negotiations have been going on, is this kind of a unilateral, unceremonious announcement of what the tariff figure is. Sanjana, as of this morning, we were talking about a figure between 20 to 25%.
Right.
And that also was not something that, would have been ideal, because before that, the conversation was 10 to 15%. If you can give 15% to the European Union, why not to India?
Absolutely.
Was the question. Here you've come with 25% plus a penalty, which we don't know what that penalty amount is.
Absolutely. And I think it's also hitting where it hurts because of the entire run-up to this. Let's remember that the Indian delegation has in fact visited the United States not just once but twice. There was also conversations around the US delegation coming to India to continue these negotiations. So really the question now we're trying to understand is what happens of those negotiations. Last night we did in fact bring you the news of it could be 20 to 25%. That's what sources were in fact telling us. But now we're getting the news that, Trump not just saying it in an official statement, but coming out on Truth
Frankly,
Social.
it's quite offensive for him to call our policies obnoxious. I mean, yes, we shouldn't be surprised because this is what Trump speak now looks like. But I'm going to go across to Rishabh Bhatnagar, my colleague who's been tracking the story very, very carefully. Rishabh, you've been speaking since this morning on the various scenarios that could play out. I think this is worse than the worst.
Right, Tamanna, this is a tariff that is not expected. This is slightly on the higher side. What most people were expecting was somewhere around 10 to 20% tariff. That would put us somewhere around what other manufacturing economies like Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, they've been able to hammer out as part of negotiations with the US. But clearly, 5 in-person rounds of negotiations since February, a 6th one that is scheduled for August 25th. But clearly an interim deal not reached between the two sides. There is a 25% tariff now that Indian exporters will have to face. That is something that will put us at a temporary disadvantage versus other manufacturing economies. So that is what we're gathering so far.
Stay on with us, Rishabh. I'm going to go across to Ajay Bagga, who has been actually going through this story with us through its various twists and turns. Mr. Bagga, your first response to, frankly, what is an obnoxious post? I think that's the only way to describe it. 25% plus more. Now, what is this more?
No. See, he's done it to everybody from Japan to European Union, even Australia, which has an FTA with them, or Korea, which has an FTA. He's put a 25% unilateral tariff. So this is like, on expected lines. We should not feel humiliated by this. It's okay. 5 rounds of negotiations have happened. Apart from the obnoxious language he used when Prime Minister Modi was there with him in the White House, where he said India is a tough negotiator and India has a lot of non-tariff barriers. mostly we have got away lightly because we were working very hard on backstage with them. But this is a letdown, Tamanna, because our team came back 2 weeks back after the fifth round. And then they said in the middle of August, we will send the US team to negotiate. So what we were conjecturing that probably they will let the tariffs run. And in September, Trump might be coming to India for the Quad meeting. He will want to sign a BTA himself. So maybe he's pushing it for a large agreement. But today is a negotiation tactic where he's thrown a maximalist position, he's thrown an outlier position, 25%, and he's talked about 100% if you buy Russian oil. So let's see whether he comes on that or not. We'll have to check that out. But we have to now go with this. This is a price takers
But
market.
I want to understand how much difference it actually makes, because when you come down to the number crunching, and I mean, your gift nifty, we'll see what the gift nifty is doing, because you might have a bit of hit on it sentimentally, etc. FII flows have not been good. Your long short ratio has been bearish. All of that aside, how much of a real impact does it make, Mr. Bagga, at the end of the day? India, I mean, America is not a major importer of Indian goods in that sense. The trade quantum is not that big.
No, 83 billion is what it is. So, that's why, Tamanna, if you recall, whenever there is good news also, we are struggling to find those exporters. A lot of them are MSMEs and small-time exporters who are exporting. Already steel, aluminium was at 25 to 50%. Copper 50% is coming. Pharma, he has threatened to put 200% on pharma. So all that was being factored in. This will have to be negotiated down to 15% like the EU has done. I think that's where it will be. Impact on market, very little. And we should make people understand that there is very little impact on the Indian economy. It's not like Vietnam, where 30% of their GDP comes from US exports. So they had to do it. They took a 20% and they gave a zero tariff access to the US. We are not going to give genetically modified US agriculture access to the Indian consumer. Europe has not done it. Canada is now supplying. Brazil, which has a free trade agreement and which in fact has a deficit with the US. So US had a surplus with Brazil. He put 50% on Brazil. And of all things saying, because you're prosecuting a right-wing leader, so
Right.
I am putting it on you.
Mr. Bagga, Sanjana here, and thanks so much for joining us once again on NDTV Profit. Welcome back, I should say. I think besides the tariff, of course, I think it's also the penalty that he has imposed. Would you also be viewing that as a negotiating tactic? Because it's not just, it's insult over injury.
Yeah, no, but look at the penalty. If you put penalties on 9 million barrels of Russian oil, say out of that 6 million barrels comes out as exports, India takes 2.5 million a day. You take out 6 million barrels of Russian oil from the global supply, where will oil go to? Then it comes back as oil prices rise, US inflation will also rise because it's a free market. It's not like India where we can hold the price and government gives a subsidy to the PSU market refiners. In US, the Chevrons and the Exxons will increase the price immediately. Inflation goes through the roof. Then it defeats Trump's purpose. So where will this come? China will not agree. Very fact that he has held back that delay on China by 90 days is because of this only, that they want China to come good on Iranian.
I'm wondering, today is the 30th of July. He has said this new tariff comes into place on the 1st of August. Is this another taco trade? For those of you who don't know what is a taco trade, it stands for Trump always chickens out. There's an entire investment class now based on a taco trade, and I wonder if this is going to be one of them, simply because there's still 2 days. He wants the opportunity to say that, oh, I had a great conversation and now I'm going to extend the deadline. I don't know. Parag Thakkar joining us. Ajay Bagga, please stay on with us. I want to get more views on this breaking story this evening on NDTV Profit. Parag bhai, I'm just wondering how the markets are going to react to this tomorrow, because that's the other big question, isn't it? And we've been speaking about this, that if it's a 10 to 15%, tariff that we would have arrived on, the upside would be limited, but a negative tariff rate like this one, will it be seen as a hit, at least initially when markets open tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. Already GIFT Nifty is showing, I think, 140 points down. So definitely there will be a knee-jerk reaction. But I would like to see this as a pressure tactic on Russia, because he has given 10 to 12 days time to Russia to stop that Ukraine war, and so he wants to, put the pressure that all the Russian partners face penalty or increased tariff, so that he can squeeze Russia, so that India and China don't buy oil from Russia, and that's why he is doing this, in my view. And as you rightly said, over a period of time it will settle down, but there will be a knee-jerk reaction, yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks so much for that, Mr. Thakkar. Stay with us. We also have Ambassador Anil Trigonia, Distinguished Fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation, joining us on the phone line. Good evening, sir. First up, how do you interpret this very bizarre, I'd like to even go on a limb and say obnoxious announcement of a 25% US tariff on Indian exports? Are you also viewing this as a negotiating tactic, or would you say a fundamental shift in US policy?
Well, there's President Trump may be unpredictable in many ways, as he has shown by his unilateralism and his behavior, arbitrariness. But as far as tariffs are concerned, I think you got to take him seriously, because that is one thing he continues to stay committed. Now, he has been, since morning I've been hearing when he was leaving Scotland, that India will be imposed 20 to 25% tariff duties, and the deal has not been done. So effective August 1st, he has imposed it. And it is also true that he is under pressure, even from the Europeans and others, to pressurize Russia more. And in that case, we have seen the Europeans have already sanctioned Nyara Energy, which is Rosneft's refinery in India, and as well as now putting pressure. And he also mentioned in his Truth Social post that India continues to have purchases from Russia of the military as well as the energy. Now, so that is there, but I would not think that there is anything great. I mean, imagine, we are discussing and negotiating a trade deal. We have put our side of the story. He understands India's deadlines. At the same time, on the 6th of May, both sides had agreed virtually to the draft as the operating level. And when it went to him, he was not too happy about it. He said, no, go again, negotiate. So the negotiation is going on. Now he gives the time that the team is going to come on 15th August or so, something like that, around that time, the next negotiations. But at the same time, he knows that about China. China can impose or restrict them as far as the supplies of rare earths and other things, that critical minerals are concerned. So they have given an extension in Stockholm for talks with China. Now imagine, these are the kind of things that he continues, multiple kind of things that are going on. So it is to pressurize us. But I think that, as you know, that the Indian side has always said that we'll do what is best for our own national interest.
Stay on with us, please. I'm wondering what has changed in the last 24 hours in tone or tenor. I'm going to just play out for you soundbite from President Trump, US President Trump, on board Air Force One, where he was asked for a comment on a story that said that India could be given a tariff between 20 to 25%. Listen into what he said.
India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%. Is that what you're tracking, or what do you think the rate will be for India?
They are going to pay 25%.
That India is preparing to face higher U.S. tariffs between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, I think so.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what rate are you expecting?
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. But India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country. You know that, right? Over the years. But now I'm in charge, and you just can't do that.
Okay, so some things are consistent. He has a problem with the tariffs that India charges. He has a problem with the oil that we import from Russia. He's saying that he wants a big trade deal. But he also says we're good friends, we like them, etc., etc. I don't know what happened to all of that, where it became so angry sounding. And I'm going to, read out the current post for you as well. Meanwhile, look what's happening to the GIFT Nifty. The implied open 161 points down. Hold your horses, fasten your seat belts for a very rocky morning, a very rocky Thursday morning, as this is all sort of going haywire. This is what he has said right now, just a short while ago, possibly woken up from his sleep and decided to post this. Remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high. That seems to be the grouse, that's the current grouse. He goes on to say, high among the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the war in Ukraine and stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st. Now remember, before this, India's tariff was at 26%.
Correct.
So anyway, that was supposed to come in. The expectation was that it wouldn't go through. And you're seeing the implied down also. Ajay Bagga, I want to come to you on this point. The problem, I think, is not 25, 26, 27, 20, 21, 22%. The problem is the comparative, isn't it? What is India's tariff vis-a-vis China, Bangladesh, Vietnam, etc.?
That is one way of looking at it. Second is there is no differentiation between friend and foe. Third is even existing FTA countries have been hit with tariffs. So we should not take it personally at all. I'm sure our decision makers have it sorted out. The markets will have a small reaction, Tamanna. Even the good news has not really moved the markets. If you look at the Japan trade deal, it had an impact of all of 2 days. And then again, the markets went back looking at earnings, looking at the Fed, looking at the US economy. We just had a US Q2 GDP number of 3% coming in. So fundamentals are good. And US does well. There's a strong correlation with the Indian economy doing well. So I'm not really worried. Again, markets will discount this very fast. You were looking at 15%, it's gone to 25, 10% more, okay. We'll have to deal with it. The government will have to give some subsidies, maybe subsidize the banks in lending to these exporters. We'll have to find something. We'll have to set up centers for these exporters in Dubai, where it can be stamped made in Dubai and sent. Remember, China, the US exports in May and June fell 15%. Chinese exports to the US, but the Chinese exports to the world,
hold that thought,
because 5%.
No, hold that thought, because I actually have FIO on the line. The SC Ralhan from FIO, that's the Federation of Indian Exporters Organization, and I want to ask you exactly about that point. About, you can just route everything through Dubai and stamp it there. If that is what is happening. Mr. Ralhan, your first response really to what we're calling this evening the obnoxious post.
From one point, it has come down from 26 to 25 plus basic 10%. Secondly, but I'm surprised.
Positive, sir. Are you saying it's a positive, sir, that instead of 26 is 25?
It is a positive side, but actually his theme is coming in the month of April. It was in the Economic Times today. So that theme is coming in October. I mean, is it?
Sir, can you hear us?
Sorry, they are reaching on 25th August.
Sorry?
Okay, so SC Ralhan, sir, let's understand this.
The team from US is reaching India on 25th August. Right. So this is very surprising. His habit is surprising everybody. But at the moment, yes, it's a good sign.
Okay, so would you say that Indian exporters have begun seeing a drop in US orders, or would you say that the impact is likely to be gradual as existing contracts play out?
I don't see the orders from US because they are waiting for the BTA to be signed.
Suppose they are paying 20, 30%, 40% at the moment, 25 plus 10%. So this is 35%. Suppose after the BTA is signed, so the prices come down between 15%, 10% or 15% less. So they will be losing straightway.
Okay. You know,
So they are still scared, importers.
Right, right. In fact, that has been something that we have been saying. So, you know, you're saying that a potential silver lining is 26 to 25. Could there be any new opportunities for Indian exporters in sectors that are potentially unaffected or less impacted by these actions?
It is like a good, I think, good news for Indian exporters. Let us see.
How is,
whether
Mr.
the
Alhan,
importers
may I
come
ask you,
forward.
sir, how is this good news? Because now there is a better deal with Vietnam. There's a better deal with other countries. How is 25% a good news? Just want to get that sense from you.
Okay.
Mr. Alhan, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, please. I was cut off.
No, that's all right. I'm just asking you, why do you think it's good news? Because compared to other countries, you're going to be expensive.
Yes. As you are comparing, it will be better only after the proper BTA is signed. I hope by August it will be signed, because the team has already, the British, US team has already given the indication that we are almost ready to sign the BTA, and it is just an adjustment of few items. I think it will be beneficial, much beneficial only after the BTA.
And I'm wondering if the
think
team
it will be.
negotiating the BTA is talking to their president, because they seem to be in two different universes right now. Thank you so much, Mr. Alhan, for speaking with us. I want to bring in now a voice from Mr. D.K. Mittal, former banking secretary and someone who understands policy very, very clearly, and will have a great view on this. Mr. Mittal, I'm just wondering, how much of a real impact is it for Indian exports? How much of a hit is it, if at all, to the Indian economy? How do you see this panning out at 25% plus penalties? We don't know what that plus is.
Yes, so we could expect that from the United States, because the present administration believes in threatening countries. So this is no surprise. Insofar as impact on India is concerned, we need to divide into two parts. One, where the duties on our competitor countries are more than us. We don't have to worry much, except do the trade facilitation, reduce their cost of doing business in terms of exports and everything, whatever we can do. And there are measures which we can do, including extending credit to them from our Exim Bank and other sources. So all that is possible. The second category would be where my competitor countries have duties less than me. There I have to really seriously think, how do we make them more competitive? It is unfair and unfortunate that in the global economy, when India plays such an important part, that US is treating us like any other country. It is for them to decide. When they want us for things which we all know, for managing our neighborhood, and which is also their competitor, they need us. And when there's a question of giving trade to India, then they want to treat us like us. So that's a fair thing from the United States. But let me add, United States, it is politics which does everything, and politics is driven by corporates and business interests. So India should be smart enough to identify key business interests which are with the present administration, work with them, and see that what we can do. Because good part is you can do things through the political setup.
I'm wondering, Mr. Mittal, in your view, what should be India's response at this point to this kind of a post?
We should not panic at all. It is a long-term game. It's a long race. Let's not panic. Nothing happens in 3 months, 6 months' time. I know there will be some pain to some of the industries. I agree with that. But that's what we need to see that how do we help them out. We should sustain this assault which is happening on every country, including India. And we should really find ways to do that. There would be ways to do that.
No.
And if we buckle, the problem is if we buckle and agree to everything, whatever they want. For example, they want evergreening of the, the IPRs. I mean, how can we do that?
Yeah.
They want access to my agriculture market. How can we do that? No country gives access. What are we talking about India? Which country gives agriculture access, without any limitation? No country does it. So I don't think we really need to bother much about it. Yes, US is a critical partner for us, but that does not mean that we buckle down to a certain level, which ultimately destroys my country. You see, they have done that in WTO negotiation 2008, 2009, when they wanted almost zero duty on all non-agriculture products. And they put a huge pressure on administration, including that time the nuclear deal. But we must admit that the bureaucracy at that time and the political setup stood up to that pressure. The pressure was immense. It was much greater than what it is today. Because today the pressure is on everybody. That time the pressure was only India. Because only India was standing up in WTO on this.
Does it make sense, Mr. Mittal, for India now to start conversations with other countries that have been at the receiving end of this? And you're saying we should not buckle. For example, we know that access to genetically modified foods was one of the sticking points. And India said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to feed our population genetic modified food. So now what should be the strategy? Is it time that we start talking to other nations that are also now tired of this situation?
So, see, in this scenario, I don't think it will be a good idea to really annoy the United States for beyond your point. What we should do, we should keep our head low and keep standing on the ground and keep talking to them. And look at the system, how does it work in the United States? I think those who are in the government, they know pretty well that how the system works. That is the only way to manage it. So there isn't a point in creating a group against the United States. That will not work.
Okay, so then, but realistically, sir, what concessions do you think India can make without compromising its core economic interests?
If they want they don't have any manufacturing in the country except some limited items. We have no problem with that, those items. But they want access in, for example, intellectual property. We can't do that. They want access in agricultural item. We can't do that. That is not possible. We are a country of 150 crore population, highly dependent on agriculture. How can we do that with a country where the per capita land availability is 10,000 acres against half acre in my country? So that is not possible. We need to understand them. We need to make them understand repeatedly at different levels. We have done that earlier. So it is not something to deal with US is so difficult. No. We have to have our own strategy to deal, and I'm sure government will be having some strategy. But we must stand up, keep our head low, but stand up on an argument and see that how we mitigate this pain which has been caused by the US by putting up these tariffs. Conversation with the US is the only thing.
Conversation is the only thing. How do you converse when it's a one-sided conversation where tariffs are being used as a stick again and again, as a threat again and again? That's the question. Parag Thakkar, we've had so many views on how the markets will react tomorrow if there is a drop at opening, and I think it's clearly going to be a gap down. I think 150, 160 points down is what the Nifty implied is looking like right now. We may be seeing that deepen by tomorrow morning unless there's some kind of a response from the Indian government. What would be the strategy then? Hold on and sit tight for investors, or a strategy to come in and buy in, because this will be a knee-jerk reaction?
Yeah, so basically it depends on the depth of the correction and which basically, for example, sectors like textile or those kind of sectors which will be affected most by this tariff. So one would like to see how much it corrects, which sector corrects more, and depending upon that, one should take a call. And as I have always maintained that IT is out of all this tariff issue, and if at all the rupee is depreciating, which is 87.37 now, so this will actually lead to a sector rotation towards IT, in my view. So basically, we'll have to see how the prices open and how the market reacts. Generally, nowadays I see that any bad news is very easily absorbed by the market because there is too much of liquidity in the market. Even in the earnings season, we have seen hardly 3-4 results have been very good in the large caps, but still market is very resilient. So I would say that yes, it will be a knee-jerk reaction which will get bought into also. But some sectors, like for example textiles, which are heavy exporters to US, those guys will suffer the most in my view, at least tomorrow. Then of course, see, like for example, I was talking to one company who was competing with China in terms of exports. When China was levied with a very high duty, Chinese government immediately gave rebate to that particular sector. to remain competitive. And actually, Chinese company got the order versus Indian company. So I would say that Indian government will also have to be very, very agile in terms of giving some rebate to Indian exporters to support them during this time, because of course eventually I believe within next 2-3 months everything will settle down. Because this is, in my view, it is a clear pressure tactic to stop Russian oil imports and military equipment imports, which will actually cut the hands of Russia, and so that they will stop doing war in Ukraine. I think this is a pressure tactic just to pull down Russia.
No, so it's,
and just to
yeah, I don't know why pressure tactic on India in this manner. It seems unfortunate. But just to recap, you're saying we could see a sector rotation into IT as a
IT
contra play.
Well, see, IT is not affected by tariffs, and on the other hand, IT benefits from rupee depreciation.
Okay, so both ways. Look out for IT tomorrow. Pharma, textiles, some of the worst hit possibly tomorrow. To some extent, auto.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody who is exporter will have a knee-jerk gap down. Then, of course, people will go sector by sector, stock by stock. That so suppose, for example, auto components. There are many auto components where 90% of the business is in India. So those stocks will also can open gap down, but then will be bought into.
Okay, we have Rishabh Bhatnagar also with us, who's been tracking the story. Now, Rishabh, what are you picking up? Because, you know, we have to understand these were really long trade negotiations. You've had rounds again and again, extensions, I think 5-6 extensions of the negotiating team in the US. Then they came back, then they went again. Now, you have reported yesterday that a US team will be coming here. What's the holdup?
Right, Tamanna, clearly about 5 in-person rounds, and these are apart from the sectoral tracks that continue going on online. So it's not just 5 rounds, it's many, many more rounds of negotiations that have taken place between India and the US. Another round is set for August 25th, and all of that focused on the now clearly the first tranche of the BTA, clearly no interim deal happening with a tariff letter being shot at. What has led to this is, of course, India's reluctance in terms of opening up its market in a way that Indonesia has, in a way that Vietnam and Philippines have, given that Trump hasn't had that opportunity to boast about complete market access like he has been on Truth Social with respect to these other countries. India clearly has stuck to its red lines that it drew, especially in agriculture as well as dairy. Those are 2 areas. India has very clearly said that GM crops will not be allowed, genetically modified crops, because given that India is and continues to be a largely agrarian economy, there are millions of livelihoods that are purely dependent on these very small and medium landowners. And what if crops and staples were to come in from abroad and from a market like US, where also agriculture is heavily subsidized for farmers, it could mean sort of a death blow for India's small farmers. So India has stuck to those red lines as well. I have an April report here as well, in which the US highlighted various non-tariff and tariff barriers that India had. Of course, US, like Trump, like you mentioned, Trump's obnoxious post. The background is, of course, that US has had a very long-standing issue with India's tariff barriers. It has said that India's applied tariff rate at 17% was highest among any major economy in the world. Non-agricultural goods, the tariff that India put was about 13.5%, and 39% was on agricultural goods. It has also criticized previously in the past, US has said that India's tariff hikes on imported headphones, loudspeakers, smart meters, all of these are very unilateral. And also there's no sort of way that the US can go ahead and say that they have an objection to a certain tariff rate that is coming in from the US. So all of this was part of the National Trade Barriers report that the US had come out with in the context of them having applied these tariffs around the April mark. So we have sort of this history that India and the US have had in terms of what has been going on the negotiating table. So that is perhaps the source of this 25% tariffs that have come in.
You know, there's an exclusive quote from Manish Chokhani that we have just caught, and I want to read out Big Market Voice, who says it is naturally a difficult phase in the USA-India friendship. However, I'm sure the ongoing FTA talks and the emerging Quad partnership will allow the natural ally, quote unquote, rates of 15% to emerge, as the two economies have a lot of complementarities and shared geopolitical interests. Let us wait for better times even as we tackle this bump in the road. I mean, I don't know if you see it as a bump in the road, Parag Thakkar. Just a final comment from you as we wrap up. India is standing its ground. There's no sign that that's going to change, especially on very, very crucial factors like access to the agricultural sector and some imports, dairy imports, etc., which the United States wants for us to bring into India. Having said that, what do you think are the chances of better times in this 15% that Manish Shokhani has just spoken about?
No, see, 15% eventually will come after the discussion and after we agree to some points of there that we'll stop buying military equipment or reduce Russian oil imports. I think that will come, and so hopefully, you know, if Russia also stops Ukraine war, then everything will fall in place, because I clearly feel that it is all about Russia, and whatever products they want to sell in India, of course, definitely we are negotiating, and we should not let go of our agricultural things, that is for sure. As somebody also pointed out, that for us, the 150 crore people of India are most important, and we should not compromise on that just because of this pressure tactics. So we should not let down on that, and hopefully give some benefit to the industries who are exporting, because they are labor intensive. Most importantly, for example, textile or jewelry sector, they are large employers of a common man, right? So we should protect them by giving some rebates in the interim till the duties are brought down to lower levels than our competing countries.
Okay, Parag, I want to thank you for that insight. Just as we take a break on this special broadcast, want to just play out for you this comment from Ajay Sahai, who's the Director General and CEO of FIO. Now remember, this is the federation body which represents imports and exports, and this is what he has to say.
25% tariff on India is a little disappointing on us. We are constructively engaged with the US on the BTA. We are also not certain what will be the added penalty which he is talking about. But at least now we know that whatever we have to do is with reference to 25%. I think buyer and seller will start negotiating, and to see what extent that can be absorbed. This in any case is for the limited period, and as soon as India culminates the BTA, these rates can be brought down also. So this is a little difficult situation as of now, but I'm sure in a couple of days situation will be much clearer to all of us.
There you heard it from Ajay Sahai, Director General and CEO of FIO. With that, we have to wrap on this very special broadcast. Hopefully, as experts have been saying, Tamanna, a bump in the road, but remains to be seen how the markets react tomorrow to this.
Expect a pothole in the markets tomorrow. I don't know about bump in the road, but there's going to be a ditch in how the markets open tomorrow.
One can hope.
But we'll be back with everything that you need to do before the setup of trade tomorrow, so stay tuned to NDTV Profit.